Thank you very much, Secretary Zar and Dr. Sigonas. Good morning. It is great to be here with all of you today. I'm honored to open this important summit on cyberbullying prevention and want to start by thanking each of you for your commitment to the topic. I know many of you are here representing social media companies, federal agencies, educational organizations, youth programs, and law enforcement. I also know we share one goal: to pave a smooth way forward for our children, our next generation. I launched my Be Best campaign in May with a focus on the many issues facing children today, one of them being the safe and responsible use of social media. In today's global society, social media is an inevitable part of our children's daily lives. It can be used in many positive ways, but can also be destructive and harmful when used incorrectly. This is why Be Best chooses to focus on the importance of teaching our next generation how to conduct themselves safely and in positive manner in an online setting. I have been so inspired by the children I have met in my time as First Lady and believe our next generation has unlimited potential to impact our world in positive ways. As an example, I recently had the privilege of meeting several bright students who are part of Microsoft's Council for Digital Good. In addition to sharing their 15 beliefs of how to be healthy and safe online, they each showed me individual projects representing their thoughts and ideas on what responsible behavior means to them. I was impressed by their deep understanding of how important it is to be safe and was inspired by their sincere commitment to reducing peer-to-peer bullying through kindness and open communication. I encourage technology and social media companies, schools, and community groups to establish more opportunities for children, such as Microsoft's Council for Digital Good. By listening to children's ideas and concerns, I believe adults will be better able to help them navigate this often difficult topic. Let's face it, most children are more aware of the benefits and pitfalls of social media than some adults. But we still need to do all we can to provide them with information and tools for successful and safe online habits. Thank you all again for being here today. Our children deserve all of the opportunities we can give them to grow up happy, healthy, socially responsible adults. And your commitment to this topic is an example of one of those opportunities. I look forward to today's discussion and to working with all of you in the future. God bless you and your families, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking Mrs. Trump for joining us today to share her insights and highlight the Be Best campaign. It is a true honor. We applaud you for your dedication to bettering the lives of children throughout the country. Thank you. Our next speaker is a University of Texas college student and activist. He is here today to tell his story and highlight his outstanding work as an active bullying activist. Please welcome Joseph Grunwald.
Thank you for inviting me to address such an impressive audience. Please first bear with me. I'm a little nervous. I've never spoken in front of this many people before, not to mention in front of such high-level guests. But I really care about this topic, and I would like to share my ideas with you. One reason I care is because of my own experiences with bullying. I was bullied throughout middle school and the beginning of high school. The bullying began as taunts thrown at me on the school bus, and that's how it was for most of middle school. High school, on the other hand, is where the bullying became much, much worse. Every day, I was verbally harassed in the hallways by one particular student who would goad other students into joining him. The verbal abuse eventually progressed into physical harassment in front of crowds of my classmates. It got even worse, and it became violent. All while this was going on, I was being harassed on social media by kids using multiple fake accounts. And because the bullying was also online, I couldn't escape it no matter where I was. Not at school, not at home, nowhere. Nowhere. Being bullied led me to be an activist, but most kids who are bullied just don't have the support systems or the resources that I had and are not able to do that. But we might ask ourselves, why are kids bullied, right? Often it's because they're perceived to be different in some way. Maybe they're awkward. Maybe they have difficulty with social cues. Or maybe they're from a different country. Or they're LGBTQ and gay like I am. Or they have a medical or psychiatric issue. But you know what? Let's take a closer look at some of the stories I've encountered. I've been working on kids on gaming networks, and I'll speak on that more in a minute. But while these kids I've met on gaming networks are not necessarily representative of all kids who are cyberbullied or just bullied, I've come across some kids with some harrowing stories. And these are real. These are all real. Imagine you're a closeted, bisexual 16-year-old living in a very rural Midwestern community. And your home is a cabin with no heat and no air conditioning. The school you attend is small, and there are only a couple dozen kids in your grade. Some of them bully you at school and on social media, kids who know you and some who don't, but they all call you names. And sometimes they tell you to just kill yourself. Others ignore you, and there's no school counselor in your school. One of your parents is a drug addict, and both parents don't seem very interested in your life. Unsurprisingly, you're depressed, but when you try to talk to your parents, you're told to buck up. You're fine. Walk it off. And you have no one to talk to. Now imagine you're a 17-year-old male who lives in a trailer in a rural part of the South with your elderly grandmother. Your mom died a couple months ago from heart problems, and you have no health care. You're bullied and harassed for being overweight and poor, and you have no one to talk to. Now imagine you're a gay 15-year-old African-American student who lives in a rural area in the Northeast with a large and white foster family. You're also one of the only African-American students at your school. You're the target of multiple instances of racist bullying from students, both verbal and physical. School staff don't help, and the school pegged you as a bad kid a long time ago. You've been suspended multiple times. Your foster parents are abusive towards you and your half-sister. And you have no one to talk to. These stories are all about males because they are the people I've met on gaming networks. A few of the details have been changed to protect anonymity, but nothing, unfortunately, has been exaggerated. I have to say, Their resilience in the face of such challenging circumstances is something I think we can all admire. But we might ask ourselves, what should be done? But I'll tell you a little bit about what I've been doing. In high school, I helped create an anti-bullying initiative. With my principal's support, another student and I designed and delivered workshops for every freshman English class in my high school. Our goal was to humanize kids who are different and to convey to students the power that their words and actions carry. One of the things we did talk about was the ways we were connected, and we didn't just focus on all our differences. Another thing is we would discuss the likely percentage of the student body that are LGBTQ and how that meant most students probably had LGBTQ friends, whether they knew it or they didn't. But here are the three main takeaways from the work we did. One, that it's better to have programs led by students than adults. Two, that bystander intervention is a key part of the solution. And I cannot emphasize that one enough as well. But maybe most importantly, I think the main goal should be to activate students' natural empathy, because we all have the power to be kind, and we're all, I think, born being kind, but the world takes a toll on us. And if we can somehow access that empathy, I think we'll be in a much better place going forward. In addition, our work emphasized the power of bystanders to reduce bullying. Bullies target students who are isolated from the rest of their peer group and then isolate them even further. When I was harassed, not one person watching stuck up for me. Not one person. Active and supportive bystanders are the most important line of defense between bullies and their victims. And while the most effective thing a bystander can do may be to directly confront the bully, that can be risky for a kid who's intervening. So even something as little as asking the bullied student if they're all right can make a huge difference. And, I know that if someone had come up to me and asked me if I was all right, that would have made the world of difference to my 9th grade self. In my experience, students themselves are better messengers rather than school staff or other adults. Those who have experienced bullying rather than school administrators can take the lead in educating and activating student bystanders, as they, the victims, can use their experiences to connect and generate empathy in a much more organic way. When I spoke to students about my experiences, much like I've spoke to you guys now, they would often connect these with experiences in their own lives. And, as far as I'm concerned, the more connections students build with each other, the better. Especially when in the context of respecting differences among students. While our efforts in school focused on LGBTQ students and their struggles, the strategies we use can be applied to all types of bullying. It's all about real and perceived differences. And both cyberbullying and in-person bullying are influenced directly by the culture of any given school. In addition, bullying is not just confined to the school setting. It happens in our homes, happens in our communities, and it happens on the national level. And it happens online. Cyberbullying is especially destructive because the bully doesn't have to see the victim and the effect of the bullying. There's no eye contact. So it's easy to distance yourself from any consequence or emotional reactions from the victim. It's a method of bullying for the most cowardly among us, but I think we can all agree that bullying in and of itself is a cowardly act. The same approaches that worked in conventional face-to-face bullying are likely to also work with cyberbullying. Student-led programs, bystander intervention, and activation of students' natural empathy are all ways that can be used to deal with both cyber and physical bullying. As I was putting this talk together, one piece of information jumped out at me, and this is a statistic from the Human Rights Campaign. 73% of LGBTQ youth say they are more honest about themselves online than in the real world. Although this statistic is about LGBTQ youth, its implications are far, far broader. I believe online spaces can be a lifeline for marginalized youth and those at risk for bullying. The right kind of online environment can be a counterbalance to the isolation they experience in their physical communities. At-risk youth need online spaces that are both safe and uplifting. As I mentioned before, one of the ways I've been exploring this is through online gaming communities, such as Xbox Live. Over time, I became the organizer of a community and now mentor kids with a wide range of struggles, some of which I mentioned earlier. They often come to me or each other for advice or even just to talk about their day to anyone in the group. Many kids desperately need positive social interactions with their peers. And while online is no substitute for real life, it can provide real connections to break through these kids' isolation. In conclusion, I know that we all care deeply about bullying, regardless of what form it takes or where it comes from, or we wouldn't be here today. So let's work together to make sure that our common humanity and capacity for empathy is celebrated online instead of what happens all too often these days. Thank you so much.